You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money. Welcome back, my sassy friend, for another episode of Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach and this podcast. And today with me, I have Dr. Jessica Gold, who I consider a very dear friend, and I love what she's doing in the world. So I am tickled to have her on my podcast today. Dr. Jessica is a passionate relationship coach for powerful men in tech. Got into this work because she had to make this leap herself. She had spent years stuck in her head, disconnected from the body and emotions and having terrible sex. And after undergrad from MIT, Jessica spent 10 years working in a lab as an organic chemist and neuroscientist, completing both her PhD and postdoctoral fellowship while teaching undergrad classes, presenting at international conferences, managing lab assistants, the whole thing. Objectivity reigned. The subjective embodied experience was laughed at. After experimenting with sex and alternate relationships in underground communities in San Francisco and at Burning Man, she's decided there was more to life than pipets and left her career to travel the world. If I said that wrong, I'm so sorry. To travel the world to say yes to what scared her. She spent 4+ years in Tantric and spiritual communities in Asia studying shadow work. I am going to do that damage. Kundalini, non-dual tantra, and more. After a decade in this new field, Jessica is now PCC certified by the ICF, by Vita and Tantra and Men's Sexuality by David Bedrick in process-oriented psychology, and as a sensual arts facilitator. Dr. Jessica has helped hundreds of men and couples in tech get out of their heads, feel powerful and confident as lovers, and master the art of relating to women. She dares you to believe that sex and relating deserve to be given at least as much time as working out or developing your latest AI app. Okay, well, I love that because I totally agree, especially as a woman. So I'm sorry if I did any of that damage when I was pronouncing some of those technical words. That's way above my brain power knowledge of some of the words.
Thank you for reading all of that.
I love how you have taken your knowledge and your PhD and the chemist and all neuroscience and all of that and put it into something tangible that people can actually change and learn from and develop to be better people, to have better sex lives, to have better relationships, period, right? To be sensual. I love that. So first and foremost, I'm going to say that because I don't think there's a lot of them that go from all of that to doing what you're doing. And the fact that you have all that information means, one, you know what the hell you're talking about. So I'm just putting that out there. We're going to dive deep into this because I want my listeners to understand that, guess what? She's got a PhD and she had money mindset stuff that she had to work through too. So I think that's really important too, because we're all human and we all think, I'm not supposed to be, how can I be wealthy if I didn't come from it? Wealth is for other people. Someone has to give me the money, or I have to. See, I was always taught I had to marry into the money. And I call BS on that. And so that was one of the things you even said, is that charging higher prices means you're greedy, or wealth is for other people. Someone has to give you the money. You're not allowed to earn it yourself. And a lot of times I think that's a stigma that's a stigma women feel most of the time in society. Doesn't help that. Right. And you should be able to, like you said, I should stay small, work hard, and be grateful for the scraps. I like the fact that you said grateful for the scraps, because that's what it feels like, right? So one of the things that I'm going to ask you is how you said one of the biggest money mistakes that you did, and what you learned. Well, you didn't put in what you learned, but I want us to discuss that, was letting fear dictate your decisions when it came to money. So how did fear dictate your decisions? What did you learn from it?
Yeah, great question. So the money mindset that I was raised with was a more traditional long-term investing mindset, which isn't a bad one. It's still quite wise to understand how to invest and hold things for the long term. And what came with that for me was a very big risk aversion and an inability to really understand how to evaluate risk when it comes to finances. I think there was just a lot of fear somehow in me around, oh, if you risk anything and lose it all, it's so shameful. You'll be an idiot. You'll be seen as an idiot. And um, that anything except the most careful, most conservative investment was just too risky. And now I've actually forgotten your question. Say it again.
How did well you've got how it dictated your decisions, but how did you move through that? What did you learn from it? How did you get to the other side of letting fear dictate your decisions?
Yeah, it's such a big question. I think some of the things that really helped me were, well, coming into my own self-confidence and coming and just learning that I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to make the most informed decision that I possibly can. But a big thing too was just learning to trust myself, trust that I would be able to make more money. And that has been the hardest thing of all, because I really didn't trust that for a decade or more when I was starting out as an entrepreneur. But so those two things, learning to trust that I would somehow find a way to make more money if I made a really bad decision, or that I would find the growth opportunity or the learning in it and I would figure things out. Trusting my ability to use my discernment, to use critical thinking, to do like thorough research, to get advice from more experienced people and make the best decision I possibly could. And then the other thing though, and this was really has been a game changer for me, is noticing how I relate to my money, my bank accounts, checking my bank accounts, even how I relate to what's in my wallet. And I noticed that, every time I went to check my bank accounts, there was fear or resentment. And I was just sad and disappointed. And so essentially,
Mm.
my entire relationship with money, and, people talk about these things like money's just an energy. I don't believe that, but there is a sense in which my entire relationship with this made up thing that we call money was the only emotions I was giving it was fear, resentment, disappointment. And to start to look at that and say, well, what if I went and checked my bank account with this sense of gratitude or this sense, yeah, of thank you, or of, okay, we're doing all right. And, it's like I'm in a living, prayerful relationship with money, this entity
I was
yeah.
waiting for you to say the word that I tell everybody is that
Uh-huh.
money's a tool, but I consider it part of energy, but money's a tool. But what I tell people a lot is we have to change our relationship. You have a relationship with money.
Mhm.
And when you think about it that way, if in your relationship, would you be disappointed every time you walked into their house? Or,
Mhm.
same thing goes when you open your bank account, right?
Mhm.
And would you put your best friend down, if they were looking at their bank account? No, you would lift them up. So why don't we do it for ourselves? And so I was waiting for you to say the key word. I was waiting, and you said it because
Uh-huh.
because you're a relationship coach,
Yeah.
right? So that relationship, having that relationship and being able to change it and have that gratitude,
Mhm.
and I tell people all the time, I am not on this far side of the woo woo. And I believe what we focus on, we create more of.
Yes.
And when we focus on the negativity and when we focus on the crap and the sadness and all that fear, that's what we create more of. However, when we go and we focus on the gratitude and being thankful for what's there and we can receive more, we end up creating more, and it works. I don't care how, it works. um, eh, when you started creating that gratitude and changing your relationship with money and how you looked at your bank account, what sort of shifts did you notice within yourself as far as making money and the money mindset that you had?
Yes. So it's been a slow process for me. I would say that part wasn't magic for me. But what it did allow me to become aware of was that I had gotten used to the feeling of contraction and sort of just like, I'm going to shove all of that money stuff away and try to ignore it and just hope that, I make ends meet and that it comes out okay. And I was just used to walking through life with this feeling of, oh, I don't have enough, and just contracted. And when I realized that, and I gave myself permission to have more space around it, to lift my head up out of that pattern and say, wait a minute, what if I breathed into and became aware of that pattern and identified with this spacious awareness and let myself consider, what are the ways in which I do have enough?
Mm-hmm.
What are the ways in which I'm very, very fortunate, because I am fortunate financially in many ways? What are the ways in which this money has sustained me, even if it's not what I think I want?
Right.
And so then walking through life from that point of view, I mean, that's a huge moment of waking up out of a certain pattern. And for me, I have a background in spirituality and this process of awakening and questioning our stories and our narratives, and coming into identifying with awareness instead of being identified and embedded with thoughts. And so it was all like really a part of that overall larger awakening journey. And I think I find it fun and interesting, freeing and empowering to continually do that in my life, in relationship with money. And then, after doing that process and then reading a lot of books on money and wealth, and also working really hard on my business at the same time, I mean, I have come into more easefulness. And now, I have a really great tool that helps me see both um, my business situation and my personal overall net worth. And it's really fun to use. I love looking at it. And I'm like, wow, I love looking at my bank accounts now. I feel more centered and powerful. And when you feel that way, you see different opportunities in life and different things come to you. I never believed that stuff as a scientist. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, life doesn't work that way.
Right. It's just going totally against a scientist's brain, right? It totally is.
And when you carry yourself differently, we are complex creatures, and so people notice that energetically.
Yes, very much so. And I'm so glad you used that, because I mean, you've used two of the words that I have. I created 5 wealth codes that I consider these codes to be the codes to being wealthy, to being truly wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just with money. So to be truly wealthy, it's spiritual, mental, physical, energetic, and financial. And I truly believe that, because I've started realizing that that's what I was doing. Those are the areas that I changed and the areas that I worked on. And I'm gonna make a comment. You said that it wasn't just like a one time magical moment. Is what you used. I'm gonna I'm gonna say newsflash. It's never a magical moment. It's a lot of little aha moments. I had a lot, because I literally I sat back and I was like, okay, wait. Statistically speaking, they say this, this, and this. Well, I threw all those statistics out the window and showed them they were wrong statistically with the drug addiction and the alcoholism. Why can't I do something different with this? Why do I have to accept what whoever is saying this is how it has to be, that I have to marry into money or already have it in order to create wealth? Is that really true?
Yeah.
Or is it a story? And when you start realizing that society or your parents or whoever has told you the stories, and then you started telling yourself the story and you realize, I have the power. I can change that story for me. My story doesn't have to be the same as theirs, right? And you start turning inward to that energetic and that spirituality, which is totally different from, I'm analytical, right? So that's totally different from the analytical brain of A plus B must equal C, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, that's not how that works. And so my analytical brain was going, this doesn't add up. And I'm like, yeah. And what if we could still do it this way? And it's kind of like how you're talking about that scientist to spirituality. It's like, why does it have to be and or? Why can't we do both?
Right.
And that's what you've done with with your business, is you're using the both. So why can't it be done with our relationship with money and changing who we be, how we act, those things. And when you start doing that, like you said, people can tell your energy is different. And when you do that, it also starts to attract more because your energy is different. I know for a fact, because you and I are in a mastermind together, that one of the things you've struggled with, a lot of the things I've struggled with when it comes to charging more. We've worked on all these things, then we still stop and go, What are some of the things that you've done? Because I know I have listeners out there who have struggled to charge more of what they're worth, not based on the time, but based on their expertise, their experience, their knowledge. What are some of the things that you've done to work on that in order to bring yourself to the other side and say, you know what, it's okay for me to charge more. It's okay for me to earn money. I'm an expert in my field. I know what the hell I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. It's okay for me to charge more.
Yeah, that's a good question too, and a deep one. So first there were several things I needed to address. And the first was I realized I had a narrative in my head that, it was a huge, huge leap. It was the biggest stretch of my life to start my own business. And I was really up against a lot of patriarchal narratives, misogyny, ideas that still I see on the internet today, that how dare a woman have her own money. This is still relatively new in the world. And where I come from in West Texas, it's fairly patronizing, condescending, that like, yes, there's a man who runs a giant company and he grants you a certain value, and it's always like someone else up on high has to be deciding how much money you get to make. Like, you cannot determine that for yourself. And look, I understand there's a lot of fraudulent stuff out there. There is an inherent danger in that method. And that just isn't true for everyone, right? So we're up against a lot of deep-seated narratives there. And to unpeel those, first, I needed to find examples of other women who were having the audacity to do it. Really, my brain needed examples. I needed role models. I needed people I respected, who I felt were ethical, highly competent, doing great work. So I sought those people out and spent time with them. And that allowed me to start to shift some of those narratives. Another thing that I had to do was, look, I come from a highly technical field. I've been in rooms with, some of the smartest minds in the world discussing the intricacies of organic chemistry and how molecules interact. And that requires years and years of difficult study of highly abstract technical things. It's not something you can just learn in a week workshop or something like that, or even in 6 months.
Right.
And spending years and years and years in that world, working with my hands also and getting experience, I can see how people in technical fields, like, we understand that we pay them a lot of money to do their thing, whether you're a computer programmer, a venture capitalist, or, a scientist or an engineer of some kind. But I had to stop and think, like, why do we value those professions so much more? There's themes of capitalism and produce more, bigger, better, that come, and materialism here, consumerism, that are all at play there. Somehow we really value, that. Whereas the healing realm has traditionally been a little bit less valued unless you're a doctor. But, the idea that our psyche, our emotions, and our connection with our body and our relationship to others is as important as consuming and, producing novel things is quite a revolutionary idea. And so I realized that I was up against that narrative as well. And I just decided, I said, no, actually, what I have had to study in terms of relating emotional intelligence, how the nervous system works, trauma, all of the deep, deep personal work that I did on
Mhm.
myself to be able to show up and hold space for others over the course of a decade. I said, no, I think that I'm going to value that just as much, as the technical realm. And at this point, I was in the technical realm for 10 years and in, the psychological relational realm for spiritual realm for 10 years. And so I just decided like, no, for me, it's not about my expertise, although my expertise is wide and deep, but it is about like, what is the change that this will make in your life?
And not just now, but also years from
For the
now.
rest of your life. Yeah. What is the
Yes.
lifetime value of this for you?
Mhm.
And I think then it became less about like personal to me. Like it's not about me, Jessica. It's about like what is the value of this work to the world overall.
Mhm. The impact that you're able to make. And again, it's about the change that you're going to be able to have on, the people for years and years and years to come for their life. And I agree. That's something I had to also look at. And I had to say, no, I know the work I do is going to make an impact. I know the work I do can change your life, not just while we're together, but also for the rest of your life, because it's going to change the way you
Yep.
think and about money and how you manage it and what you do with it. It's just going to change all. It's going to change your thought process, and you're going to be looking at wealth differently
Yes.
within those things, and you're going to realize that you can create, retain, and expand the wealth and don't have to come from it in order for that to happen. Because there's, like you, when I started thinking, can I do this, I went and I said, okay, I want to see examples. Who else has created and retained and expand
Yep.
wealth that didn't come from it, right? I wanted examples, and I wanted examples, like you said, of who's done it and who w- has done it ethically, right? Because there's a lot of people who may have done it, but did they do it ethically and aligned with the core values and their beliefs and all, their beliefs and all? And the beliefs didn't have to be the same as mine. That's not what I was looking
Right.
for. But I wanted to see that it was done ethically aligned with theirs. And when I found that, I did what you did. I was around them, and it could be men or woman. I wanted mostly women, but I wanted both because I wanted to be able to see that it was actually possible, that you didn't come from it and you were able to do that. And I think, like you said, when you see it's possible,
Hmm.
that instills something in you. And then you go, okay, well, why not me?
Hmm.
And my answer is, why not? and then that's what I started doing. And this year we did it again. And I'm gonna be honest with everybody. When you do this, it's scary. It's
Yeah.
it's not scary. It's scary. And it also feels good at the same time because you're realizing um what you're put on this earth to do and the impacts you can make. And I think a lot of times our money mindset, um, sometimes that stalls us,
Yes.
right? From
Mhm.
from seeing what's truly a thing. And there's another thing that you said, and I'm going to ask this. You said that the most defining or most impactful money experience you had is when you lost millions in a divorce. So I'm going to ask what do you mean from that? And only share what you're comfortable with sharing. Um, and two, how was that impactful for you?
Sure. So I I have a dog over here who's recovering from surgery. Just FYI, if I'm a little bit
Okay.
distracted, he has a cone on his head, so
Oh,
I
no.
know he's moving around. So I'm just a second. It's okay, buddy. We have our ones that we take care of. Good boy. Okay. Um. Yes. So had the I had a beautiful love affair with my ex-husband, and he was very wealthy, and um so it was it's that situation where you don't have to worry about anything, where you don't have to buy the least expensive item at the grocery store. There's just a greater sense of ease about things. And it's such a relief. And I do wish this for everyone in the world. And then when we got divorced, because of when it happened and the laws and things like this, I was no longer, his wealth was his, it was not mine. Right. And so I was,
Right.
prior to that, I had been a postdoctoral fellow, a graduate student, and, not making very much money, but living in California. And so I was, back on my own with what I had started with. And, back in that situation of, okay, I need to go to the discount grocery store and only buy the least expensive thing. And I can only buy the bare essentials. I can't buy, the like sauce that I love that's just a little bit more expensive, right? So going back, and it's really challenging. It's whiplash to do that. I had to face a lot of resentment, a lot of bitterness toward wealthy people, a lot of anger, a lot of fear. It was such a deep, deep process for me. And it required me to say, okay, never again. I'm not going to need only be made wealthy from a man, from a marriage. I need to figure out how to do this on my own.
You rely on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's something I think is huge because my mission in life is so that every woman can stand on their own 2 feet, whether they need to or not. Because like your example is, we as humans, we don't think about it, but we get used to the situation and it's a life of ease and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden, right, life happens and that ends. And when it ends, it's kind of like whiplash. You're right, because I'm thinking about my own situation, my story, and you're right. It's like you're jarred back and you're like, okay, now what? And from there, the fact that you came to the same conclusion that I hope a lot of women come to and that I came to was, okay, I'm going to create my own wealth.
Yes.
I'm not going to rely on someone else to give it to me. I'm going to create my own wealth. I'm going to rely on myself, my knowledge, my expertise, the things that I'm good at. But I'm going to create my own wealth, and that's basically taking your power back. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you, it's very empowering. Yeah. And then from that's when a lot of the mindset shifts have to happen, and you don't do them all overnight or in one night or in 1 week, or they're a work in progress, a continuous work in progress. I say this every podcast episode, and a continuous work in progress.
And it was not linear. Even though I really wanted to do this on my own, life had other plans for me. I got sick in a really unexpected way, in a very painful, very challenging way. And I still, because I had left my career to study in these tantric communities, and I hadn't developed a consistent source of income yet. And so I had to ask for help again. I still I couldn't quite believe or see my way through. And so there was a further, challenge that came to me. And it was many years before I started to get my feet under myself. And it was just a constant process of surrender and asking, okay, so what do I need to learn from this? And why is this being presented to me? Like where can this make me stronger? And it asked me to really hold on and breathe and surrender more deeply than I ever imagined. And it was a very challenging time.
Yeah, the last 6 months in my business and personal life, I feel that deep because it was very challenging, and it was asking me to surrender and lean into the possibility. And what can I learn from this? What am I meant to learn from this? What am I supposed to take from this? And The experiences aren't always great when you have those learning opportunities, and sometimes they happen for a reason. And I'm also going to say, because this has been said to me, so I'm going to say it to you because I do believe it's true. It takes a more empowering and courageous woman to ask for help. A lot of times you are a lot more powerful when you are able to ask for help. And I know this because asking for help is not something that's easy for me. I'm 50. It's a lot easier than it used to be. And there are times I still struggle with it. And it's very empowering, and you're a stronger woman when you can ask for help. And so asking for help a lot of times is what the universe, the higher power, whatever, is actually wanting you to do to get you to see the possibilities of what's possible and to get you further along in life. We just don't see it or realize it because we're, as one of my mentors says, we're in the pickle jar. And when we're in the pickle jar, we can't see. And I love using that analogy because I don't like pickles. So when I'm in the pickle jar, all I can think of is disgusting, and I don't see the analogy. So when we're in that pickle jar, your health mode moment, right? When you're in that pickle jar, you can't see outside of it because of the label and all the shit going on. And being able to ask for help to get you out of the pickle jar so that you can move forward in life is being a strong woman. So I'm just going to put my 2 cents out on that and say that. And what I want my listeners to get from this is, I say this quite often. Sometimes life happens. And when she does, she ain't all that nice.
Yeah.
Curveballs are going to be thrown and they're going to take you by surprise. There's going to be hiccups, whatever it is you want to call it. I call it life happens and sometimes she's a bitch. Just what I say. And what you said, okay, what can I take from this? What can I learn from this? Not necessarily looking at all the negative parts of it, but what can I take from this? What am I meant to learn from this so that we can move forward? And it's not linear. The last 6 months have been a lot of hills for me, and it's been personal and business wise, which has been even scarier. And I leaned in to my coaches and the people that I'm surrounded with in our mastermind, and my other mentors. I leaned in on them so that I could get through that, and I believe doing that is what's helped me be able to, quote unquote, get out of the pickle jar and start having the things weeded and start growing these flowers, like our coach likes to say, that we're weeding the garden and we're planting. And I love the analogies. And I think that it's really important to be able to see that sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you may not always see what's on the other side, but being able to ask yourself what you should be able to take from that. And then a lot of times it is surrendering and leaning into what's possible. Because I'm going to be honest, I mean, look where you're at now. And I don't know how long ago that was. And look at where you're at now and what you're doing. You have a TEDx talk, okay? A lot of people dream about that and don't get there, and you have a TEDx talk that got like, I don't know, boom of views in like 24 hours. It was like huge.
Yeah, it went viral.
I remember we were all pushing for it. We kept looking to see what it was, and the numbers kept changing. I was like, dude, this is almost like what is it, like a bat? What, you know what I mean? Like we're sitting here going back and forth about a score or something, and it was just like updating.
I think it has close to 50,000 views now, and I'm going for 1 million. So everyone out there, give it a watch. It's called Chemistry for Your Sex-Starved Marriage. Everyone tells me it's fantastic. So yeah,
I've watched it, and I can tell you it is absolutely fantastic. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, going through that time where I really didn't know how I was going to make ends meet, I didn't have a good place to live. It was a struggle to buy things that I needed, and I had this really big health problem, and it was expensive to get care. And I believe that it taught me to really hold uncertainty and anxiety and fear in a new way. And now I'm able to hold those things in my business much more powerfully. And it also taught me that when I do create my own wealth, that to remember to be humble, that it doesn't mean I'm better than anyone else, because I had that really visceral understanding of what it's like to struggle so much. Even though at that point I already was Dr. Jessica, I already had my PhD, and yet there I was, not even knowing.
Barely making ends
Yeah,
meet, and I love the fact that you shared that, because I think that's really, really important that people realize that, um, life one of the things I say when life happens, she's not biased.
right.
She doesn't care what you look like, if you're a doctor, if you're not a doctor. She doesn't care. Life happens. Sometimes life just happens.
Mm.
And I think it's important because it tells everyone you're not alone. And we've all had to overcome things or go through things. I like to say go through it, not overcome it, because again, when you go through them, you take whatever it is you're supposed to learn from it. And you being able to hold that uncertainty and that fear and being able to continue with your business, I think that's gold right there, because so many don't. And that was something I had to learn after having my business,
Mm.
through owning my business, not before. So I truly
Mhm.
can. I can just know and say that the importance of that is just phenomenal. Um, One of the things that I love about what you also said is that, being humble, eh, or being grateful, and looking at it and saying, I'm not better than anyone. And for me, and what can I do to help others further along? You know what I mean? Help others, help, how can I give back? Because again, I'm sure, I know I do. I can think back and I remember what that was like, and I don't ever want to go back there. Um, And so it helps me be more understanding to someone who is um, maybe struggling. And okay, how can I help empower them so that they can move through whatever it is they're moving through to get to the other side? And so I think you do that with relationships too, with your coaching. And so I think that's really, really important. Am I right about that? Am I assuming, or am I right?
Tell me again what you think that I do with with relationships in my coaching.
Well, that you understand where they're coming from, and you're able to be empathetic,
Mm.
and be able to empower them to go from whatever it is they're
Yeah.
at and move them through to the other
So
side.
I do this in a different way, but yes, the same thing, but in a different domain. I love working with men in tech who are in the same mindset that I was in, which was we were suppressing the body, suppressing emotions, and sort of denigrating any idea of studying relating or studying sex. Like, oh, that's just shameful and uncouth. Don't do that. And really saying, hey, I remember what that was like. And it just seems so scary and weird to start to pay attention to emotions. Aren't they a weakness? Aren't they a distraction? Aren't they vulnerable? I don't want to be vulnerable as a man. Yeah. So, really trying to reach a hand across and say, hey, I remember what that was like.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with money too, because like I said, being vulnerable and talking about money and money situations. So I love that you're able to shift your mindset with that, and also you're able to help others with how you help others with it. So before we end, you have a free offer for the listeners. Can you tell them about that, please?
Yes. I forgot which. Did I
Which one you did?
write one to you? I cannot remember
um,
what I wrote.
Let me see what you put. Hold on. Where did I put it? Um, where'd it go? Oh, here we go. I was right in front of me. How to incorporate neo tantra
Yep.
into your sex life now, and then you have the website. So can you tell them just a little bit about that, and then we'll make sure the website and all of that is in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people come to work with me because they want to learn Tantra. They really want their sex life to be better, to be different, to feel more pleasure, to feel more desired by their partner, to feel more connected. So I created this little tiny guide for how exactly, like, what do you do? What are the step by step things that you would do if you wanted to lead your partner into incorporating more of Tantra into your sex life. And I call it Neo-Tantra because Tantra is really a sophisticated spiritual system from 1,000 years ago that doesn't have much to do with sex. And what we're talking about today, when you think of sexuality, orgasms, pleasure, intimacy, that's really an invention of the modern West from the past 150 years. And it's better called Neo-Tantra. So I take you step by step into what do you do? What does that look like? And it's not at all what you think. And
I was going to say, I wonder exactly what people might think it is and realize that it's not what they think.
It's like juicier, meatier, deeper, more fulfilling than you might imagine. So definitely check that out. And if you want to know more, join my free community online. It's called Passionate Relationships for Powerful Men. All genders are welcome in my community, but I make content geared toward men, but the women in that group find it fascinating and I love to hear from them as well. And all genders are welcome. So thank you so much.
Awesome. I love that. I will make sure that we get the link for your Facebook group and I will make sure it's on the show notes. Thank you so much for being on the episode and being vulnerable and talking about the different money situations. I could tell it was vulnerable and I thank you because that's what this podcast is about, is I'm wanting the listeners to be able to hear and see that they're not the only ones. They're not alone and we're able to there are ways that we can work through those things and come out on the other side. So until next time, my sassy friend, remember to go out there and create, retain, and expand some wealth. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.thesassywealthcoach.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.thesassywealthcoach.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.